Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be filming another video in the Pepperdine series. Probably the two biggest questions that I've gotten since starting to film videos about Pepperdine is one, is the tuition price worth it? Which I did film a video on this already, so I will link it down below. And the second question that I get asked quite a bit is about the practicum experience and what that was like. I have not started my practicum yet. I'm actually going to start next week, or I guess this week, because I think this video comes out the week that I'm starting. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how the process was finding a practicum and what's entailed and all of that. So if you've watched any of my past Pepperdine videos, you'll know that my experience at the university has not been very positive, and this experience is no different. I had quite the hard time finding a practicum site that would work for me, and I didn't feel entirely supported by the university. The reason that I chose Pepperdine over some other schools was because they had a placement team and they guaranteed to find you placement, that be it within a 150-mile radius of where you live, but that's a whole other issue. But let's talk about how the process is supposed to work. So you start by taking the Prep for Practicum Psych 661 course, and at the beginning, before you start that course or right when you start it, you'll get a call from the placement team kind of just asking you what your preferences are, what population you want to work with, how far you're willing to travel, what your means to transportation are, kind of all of that basic stuff. And then based on that, they start to look for different sites around your area that could be a possibility for you to work at. During that 11-week term, you will get a call from your practicum specialist, and they'll kind of give you places that are looking for interns. You do still have to go through the process of filling out the application and sending your resume and possibly a cover letter and all of that. Then you also do an interview. Depending on how competitive the place is, you might have to do 2 or 3 interviews. And then once you get accepted to a place and choose a location, you would fill out all of the paperwork and be set to start your practicum the next 11-week term. So how it went for me, and honestly how it seems like it went for a lot of out-of-state students, and by out-of-state I mean out of California, because Pepperdine's based in California, was I got that beginning call the week before the term started, and I talked to one of the specialists, and I was pretty broad about what I wanted. I did emphasize that my transportation wasn't great and that I wouldn't want to travel too far. I kind of said these are the populations that I would like to work with, but I'm also open to experiencing different things. The only thing that I really wanted was for the place that I was being hired at to be a little bit flexible, meaning that I could possibly do telehealth if I needed to, or find a schedule that worked with my school schedule. Because that's the thing, is you're not just working, you're not just doing the practicum, you still have full-time classes on top of that, and that alone is a full-time job. So I really wanted to make sure that I worked somewhere that understood how hard grad school is and kind of took that into account when figuring out how much I was gonna work. So after that call, I heard nothing from the practicum team for about 6 weeks. And people just kind of kept telling me that that was normal and that I should just kind of trust the process. I was told that the practicum team is constantly reaching out to a lot of people, and if they get turned down from a place, they're not gonna tell me about it, so that if I don't hear anything, it's not that the practicum team isn't doing their job. The biggest issue with the whole practicum process is that every student needs to follow Pepperdine's requirements for a practicum, and Pepperdine's requirements are California's requirements. And California just likes to be very intense about what their requirements are for pretty much everything and anything. And most other states, one, don't require that, and two, don't even have the resources to meet the needs for that. So that was the biggest issue that I was running into living in Illinois. I required a lot more supervision than other Illinois students because essentially I was like a California student living in Illinois. Also, the credentials for a supervisor were a lot higher, the amount of like continuous education classes that they needed to take and all of that. And really it seemed unfair. Like, I do feel that we should be able to follow our own state's requirements, especially if it's prohibiting students from getting a practicum site on time or at all. So that practicum class, that 661 class, is one where you actually do meet weekly and you have a professor and stuff, and people kind of share their updates. And around week 6 is when I was getting pretty frustrated, and I shared that with my class, and my professor reached out to the placement team on my behalf. The next day, I received an email from a new placement advisor, like just saying that she was going to be my new placement advisor and that she was actively looking for sites for me. And the day after that, she actually sent me a site. The problem with it is it was like really far off from the population that I'd want to work with. And I did say that I was flexible and I was willing to kind of branch out. But the bigger problem was that it was 20 miles away from where I live. For some of you, that seems like not a lot. I mean, if I was living where I grew up, 20 miles is only like 20-minute drive. But in Chicago, let me just tell you, expect the commute to be about 5 to 10 minutes a mile. So this place was about an hour drive normally, like for me. Then also working the normal 8 to 5 hours, I'd be driving right during rush hour, so it would be more like an hour and a half. And I basically said, this just is not gonna work for me. I can't commute like 3 hours a day. Another thing that's kind of annoying about the distance thing is they do tell you in the contract that they'll find you a placement within a 150-mile radius of where you live. However, you need a secured address of like somewhere that you live, not just like a P.O. box or something, but an actual house or apartment before you can even work with the placement team. I find this strange because I feel like most people will find a job and then move to somewhere that's like closest to that job, not really the other way around. So I don't think it's fair that they can say, we'll find you a placement within this radius, but if you've already signed a lease, that's not our problem. So at that point, I can't really move because I'm in the middle of my lease right now and I can't just break it. I also find it insane that I live in one of the biggest cities in all of the US and they could not find me a single placement in this city. It was all like in the suburbs. But I told my placement advisor that I really wasn't willing to make that commute. Another big problem is our car is pretty old and not super reliable, so I didn't want to be putting a ton of miles on and doing a ton of driving all the time, which was another thing about this site is that they did like home visits. So not only would I be commuting there, but I'd also be pretty much driving around all day. And at this point in my life, I can't really afford to just purchase a new vehicle. But at the end of the day, I basically said within 5 miles would be ideal, within 10 miles if absolutely necessary. The next week, so week 7, I get told that there is no possibility of finding me a site that close, that they've reached out to over 40 sites and nowhere is either accepting interns or can meet the requirements. And I'm sitting here kind of feeling like, okay, so unless I want to commit to commuting 3 hours a day, I don't think I can finish this program. It was a really discouraging feeling, and I just was so angry at the university for how they were handling it. It felt like no one was being held accountable besides me, which wasn't really fair. I just felt like they were not holding up their end of the bargain. So week 8, I was calling every person who would talk to me about this issue. So I talked to like multiple different practicum specialists, their manager, the student success advisors, their manager, and then eventually even got to talk to the clinical director of training, which was on week 9 is when I spoke with her. And I kind of told her all of this, and she agreed that it was very unacceptable what I was experiencing, and she hoped that they could make changes and wanted to bring it up to the dean and all of that, but at the end of the day, things aren't going to change overnight. Meaning that I was kind of just stuck in the situation that I was in, and it really sucked, especially because of how high the tuition is here. I was like, I can't back out because I'm too far in. Also, there's just nothing else at this point that I would really want to do. I really want to be a therapist. I think I'd be a really good therapist. I don't know, it was a really, really hard time for me kind of weighing my options there. Then week 10, it was like a little miracle. I got this email from someone at an organization asking me if I wanted to talk about a potential internship. Now, their main location is about 40 miles from where I live. So I was kind of like, ooh, yeah, not gonna work. But at this point, I was kind of like, I'm just gonna talk to anyone that I can. Maybe we can work something out. And I'm so glad that I did, because this lady was one of the sweetest people that I have ever met. And the organization, I just really love what they stand for. I really love how everyone there loves their jobs, or so it seems. They do have another location that's about 10 miles from me. So I'm hoping that I can be there the majority of the time. They also do a fair amount of telehealth work, so I'm hoping that that really cuts back on my commuting too. There is a chance that I will have to go into the one that's 40 miles away, which would be very, very hard commuting wise. But if it's something where I only have to go into that office like one day a week, I am willing to do it. But I did the interview, they accepted me as an intern, and I was rushing to try to get all of the paperwork done because the term was ending. I didn't get it all completed before break, and then kind of everyone left. So I had to wait like 2 weeks before I could finish it. So that was definitely like anxiety provoking. But I did get a site, and I still don't have all the paperwork done because there's a lot of paperwork on the school side of things, and then there's also a lot of paperwork on the organization side of things. It's also just a lot of waiting for other people to sign things or fill things out. But as far as the organization goes, everyone there has been very helpful, very responsive, so I really love that. At this point though, we'll see if I start on time. There's a lot of things that still need to be done and things that I'm waiting on, so I'm crossing my fingers. The supervisor that I'm working with says not to worry about it, and that no matter when I start, that she will catch me up and make sure that I have the right amount of hours, so I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, long story short, finding a practicum is very, very hard. I think I just got lucky pretty much. This is one of the sites that the practicum specialist reached out to, but it seems like maybe didn't inquire enough about telehealth options and all of that. She just kind of assumed since it was 40 miles away that it was like out of the cards, which I get. There are a lot of out-of-state students specifically who still are searching for a practicum and are having a very hard time getting through this, and it really just breaks my heart for them because I know how that felt. If you're someone who's going through this either at Pepperdine or at another school, what I would suggest is really to be vocal with the faculty about the struggles of this process. One of my biggest pet peeves is people will just accept that this is just how things are and move on with their lives and just be like, well, it is what it is, it sucks, but whatever. And I'm very much like, no, that's the problem, is that no one's speaking up, no one's trying to create this change. So really, really advocate for yourself and advocate for the changes that you want to see be made in the program, in this field. Another thing that I would suggest is take every opportunity that is presented to you. As I mentioned with the site that I am going to be working at, I looked at it and I was like, too far away, nope. And if I wouldn't have taken that opportunity to interview and see what it was gonna be like, I never would have been able to like accept that position and have something. So I'd say really just any interview that you get, any place that you get sent, or any place you find on your own, give them the benefit of the doubt and see what can be possible. So that is a little bit about what finding a practicum was like for me. It definitely is a very stressful experience no matter how it kind of goes for you. And I still don't know much about what it's actually gonna be like because I haven't started it yet. But if you're interested in kind of hearing more about that, maybe I'll film another video down the line. If you guys have any questions as of now, please leave them in the comments below, or you can always direct message me on Instagram. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to be notified about future videos, please hit that subscribe button below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.